Ukraine has carried out coordinated drone attacks at several military air bases across Russia, as far away as eastern Siberia. At least 40 Russian aircraft were hit, causing billions of dollars worth of damage. The attacks come ahead of Monday's prospective ceasefire talks in Istanbul.
Footage released by Ukraine's security service shows Russian planes going up in flames. A man speaking in Ukrainian describes the location as the Belaya airfield, a Russian airbase in Siberia, thousands of kilometers from the front lines. The location of the video could not be independently verified, but Ukraine has confirmed it is conducting a large-scale operation. It released these pictures showing preparations for what appears to be Ukraine's most elaborate attack yet on Russian military aviation. Ukraine claims to have hit more than 40 Russian bombers at different locations. If true, it could mean more than $2 billion in damages. A serious blow to Moscow as it reels from two separate attacks on bridges overnight. In Russia's Bryansk region, close to the border with Ukraine, one bridge collapsed onto a passenger train, killing several people in what Russia has called a terror act, without explicitly blaming a specific party.
All necessary help is being provided to those who are injured, and efforts are underway to repair the damaged tracks. 2 repair trains and 2 engineering vehicles have been deployed to dismantle the bridge fragments and clear the tracks.
A second bridge also reportedly collapsed in the Kursk region. Russia says it is still investigating who was behind the bridge explosions. The back-to-back incidents come as Russia and Ukraine are gearing up for talks in Istanbul to explore prospects of a ceasefire.
For more, let's go to Kyiv, where our correspondent Max Zander is standing by. Max, what more do you know about this drone attack at the Russian airfields?
Right, Gerhard, quite remarkable news coming there out of Russia. So far, it's largely unconfirmed, but there are multiple reports indicating that the SBU, that is Ukraine's secret service, conducted a large-scale operation targeting Russian long-range bombers in at least 2, if not 4 air bases across the country. There are videos circulating on social media that show aircraft on fire. This is likely to have happened in the Murmansk region in northwest of Russia, more than 1,800 kilometers from Ukrainian territory, and even in Siberia, as you mentioned, more than 4,500 kilometers away from the front line there. And videos that are online also show the way of how Ukraine allegedly carried out these attacks through drones. And these are not deep strike drones, which is quite remarkable, but FPV drones. So from what reports indicate is that during this SBU operation, FPV drones were smuggled into Russia on the back of trucks. These trucks were parked close to these air bases. The roofs of these trucks or the trailers were opened remotely, and the FPVs were able to fly and bring their payload to the Russian air bases and take out multiple aircraft there.
Now, what are the consequences for Russia of this attack? Right.
Still difficult to confirm all of this, but from what we're seeing, a large number of aircraft has been taken out of action or be destroyed. According to numerous reports, at least one A-50 AWACS aircraft was taken out. That is a very important aircraft the Russians use to coordinate their aerial assaults. They guide missiles with it, they coordinate fighters with it. It comes at a price tag of roughly $350 million and is very difficult to replace for the Russians. Then a number of strategic bombers has likely been taken out, as well as bombers with nuclear strike capability, which is going to make it difficult for Ukraine to conduct strikes in the future, or a little bit more difficult, but also to project power, not just in Ukraine. And this comes also at a time where the Ukrainians, or the Russians, pardon me, have have stopped producing some of these aircraft, so it's going to be very difficult for them to replace them. And maintenance also has been very difficult for the Russian Air Force ever since the sanctions regime. So this is a strong strike, or will likely have consequences for the Russian Air Force.
Meanwhile, there are peace talks scheduled on Monday in Istanbul. Tell us more about those.
Right. So the Ukrainians, only until this afternoon, left it open if they were going to attend these peace talks. But there has been confirmation by President Zelensky that the Ukrainian Defense Minister Umerov is going to be there tomorrow in Turkey. It's not exactly clear if this communication that happened this afternoon and the strikes that took place earlier today have anything to do with each other, or if this is if this may be a coincidence. The aerial attacks likely will have taken a lot of planning, at least one or even longer than a year. But certainly this is likely going to also help the Ukrainians to strengthen their negotiating positions following the Russian air raids that happened over the last couple of days and weeks here in Ukraine.
Our correspondent Max Zander there reporting from Kyiv. Thank you, Max.
Well, for more on this, let's speak now to Marina Miron, a military analyst at King's College in London. Marina, great to have you on the show. So what more do we know about these drone attacks and how they came about?
Good evening, Pablo. Well, apparently it was an operation planned by Ukrainian intelligence services, and the preparation required some 1.5 years, according to some reports. So it was a very large-scale operation, which required the drones to be transported to Russia in order to launch them from there, because first-person view FPV drones, they just don't have that range. And because Ukraine doesn't have any long-range capabilities, this is the asymmetric response that it sought to provide to Russia by launching this operation. And of course, it is expensive and it is highly symbolic, because there are a few questions. What was the Russian counterintelligence doing that it wasn't able to detect this operation being prepared and planned? And the other question is, of course, from the Ukrainian perspective, how many attempts have been made and how many of such operations failed out of, all these that have been attempted. We have one successful now, and it requires a lot of resources, so it's not something that Ukraine could do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there about the 18 months that they'd been preparing for this, and also the fact that they'd been, or the suspicion that they'd been transported to Russia is what you're saying. So how much of a blow is this then for Russia?
Well, we don't know the exact amount of damage. Each side says something different. What we have to understand is that the airfields that have been attacked are airfields fielding strategic bombers. Some of these bombers are not produced anymore, the Tupolev series. And then there was an A-50, Beriev A-50, which is an early warning aircraft, of which Russia has a very few, meaning that it will it can potentially affect the military situation on the ground. But I think in terms of impact, it's not so much the material impact, because you can always work around that. It is the psychological impact. Ukraine is now saying we can get you anywhere. And these are strategic bombers that can also carry nuclear missiles. So it's very important in this sense that both the population gets a message and the Russian leadership. So I think in a kind of a symbolic way, it is much more powerful than whatever material damage it has caused.
And Marina, of course, this all comes ahead of peace talks in Istanbul. So does what you're saying there play into this, of course?
I think it will be, well, perhaps the Ukrainian calculation would be to influence Russia in that perhaps the Russian delegation will say we don't want any peace talks. And that might be the calculus, as then to say that Russia is backing out of peace talks. So it could be that. It could be that the Ukrainian side wants to gain a better hand when it comes to these negotiations, because apparently tomorrow this memorandum from the Russian side would be presented to the Ukrainian side. So maybe Ukraine wants to have at least a stronger position when it comes to these negotiations. So certainly it was timed on the day of the Russian Air and Space Force, which is today. It is a day before the second round of peace negotiations in Istanbul. So it is, as I said before, there is a lot of symbolism when it comes to this attack.
All right, we'll leave it there, Marina, but great to have your analysis there of the situation. Marina Miron from King's College London joining us today from Munich.
Thank you for having me.